All right, thank you for joining me here on a mobile version of the campfire sessions today.
It's so nice to meet with you and everyone who's listening to us.
I love your work. I've been looking into it since we actually booked this, and I think there's so many common factors that not only support each other, but really benefit the people that we touch with our work. So it's really cool, and this is a real pleasure for me.
Same here. Thank you so much. Yes, we were actually talking and saying that, there's some specific information that allows all of us to grow, to transform, to be the best of us. And I think that each one of us, based on our own, upbringing or what we've learned or the things that we've gone through and our own personality, just takes that information and shares it in a unique way, which then it kind of, hits the heart from another angle, or each person is looking at the elephant from another side, and ultimately all comes to seeing this whole concept of how to be, a, let's say, a better, more conscious human being, and to be together and live together in a cohesive way.
See, I love that. But then on the other hand, that to play devil's advocate a little bit, there's so much fear and negative stigma around what it is that we do that sometimes it's really difficult to touch people and get them on their path. But when we look at it from the fact that we all are working for the same mission, it's almost like putting that storehouse in the middle of the community and just inviting people in because we're utilizing our voice, our knowledge, and our experiences to relate.
Very much. I do get the stigma or the fear, but most of the time, I've done this for about 32 years. And I remember when I was afraid, when I went to therapy or coaching, a lot of it is just that people go through so much pain that it's difficult to touch the pain. I saw this, I want to share this with you, that it really resonated with me. There was this little girl who was walking, and this piece of glass just went in her toes. We were in a party, and this piece of glass went in her toes. She was crying and her mommy was holding her, and we were all trying to get this little piece of glass out of her toe. And it was so interesting because the minute we would go and touch her toe, in order, you have to kind of squeeze before you could get the glass out, and it kind of hurts at that moment. So she would take her feet out, leave me alone, don't touch me, don't do anything to my foot, leave it alone. And we're like, well, you can't really walk with this. She goes, yes, I can. And then she's crying. She gets up on her other foot and she starts walking with her other foot. And this foot just puts it a little bit on an angle. See, I can walk. Leave me alone. So finally, it was like, come on, let's do it together. And then, finally she's crying and her mommy's holding her. And we go and squeeze and she screams a little bit until we could get it out. We clean it and she gets better. And as I was doing this, my guy was like, this is exactly what we do with the psychological pain. Like the minute we want to touch it is leave it alone. I know how to figure this out. I'll do my own coping mechanism. I'll leave my body, won't even think about it anymore. I'll get, in drugs and alcohol. I'll do workaholics. I'll do anything. Just don't touch it. Or, give me a lobotomy and without pain, take it away. And you and I know that's not possible. And sometimes we do have to go through the pain to get to the other side. And that's why I've seen many people shy away, because the minute they go in and it's a little bit more hard to face this, they're like, no, I don't want to do it, or you don't know how to do this, or you're just brainwashing me, or all of those stuff. And it's all about having the fear of facing the pain.
It is. And, as I think about that, my own experiences, I've always struggled with depression. I've done everything that I possibly could to mask that depression, and ultimately it became my voice. It thought for me, it spoke for me, it dictated every avenue of my life. And I can remember back to the early days of this journey where, I sat down at a table and I actually said, look, depression, I know you're going to be here with me all the time, but we're not going to play by your rules no more. If this relationship going forward has to be on my terms, you can still come and you can still do your thing, but again, it has to be for the powers in my hands. And getting there, it was such a scary journey, and there was so much muck to walk through. But not only was it empowering, but at the time, it really tapped into that sense of adventure that lived in my heart.
Yes, absolutely. I think depression especially is not only a complex phenomenon, but it's also there is a concept of, yes, you could go into very major depression if you have genetic factors or you have chemical imbalance factors. But the other side of it is, Mike, a lot of times during just phase of life issues, when we have a loss, when we're going from teenagehood to adulthood, or from adulthood to the phase of life of end of life. Every angle that we do, that we're losing something and we're gaining something, and then this transitional piece of losing something while we don't know possibly what the next level is. Many of us go through the regular anxiety and depression. And I know that some people just don't have the skills yet in how to handle that depression and anxiety. But anxiety and depression is something very common across the world. And I know that in the severe cases, they are part of the mental illnesses that we look at. But just as a condition, I think it's a human condition that we go forward. And the more that we learn about it, the more that we face it, like you did, talking to it, hearing it, knowing that what that part of us really needs and how to be able to give it is important. A lot of us just don't have skills. And I think that when we find the skills in how to deal with our emotions, with our needs, how to set boundaries, those skills really help us. But I think what happens is that we take the skills we don't know and we make it mean that there's something wrong with me, versus no, it's not that it's something wrong with me. I just don't have the skills to cope with this or how to navigate this, because there's a high level of emotional intensity. And because I don't know what to do with that emotional intensity to calm it down and come back into my rationalization and figure it out and then learn the skills and how to move forward, I take it personal, I retrieve, and I go more into the depth of emotion, and possibly either react in a way that the result gets worse, or non-action, which again, the results gets worse. And then I tell myself, see, there's something wrong with me. So it's like a cycle that we put ourselves through, which I just call it kind of unnecessary, but I do get how it happens.
And there's two sides of the coin to that, because with it, we're letting that depression take away our voice and become our voice. So we're really engaged and we're comfortable there. And it's in the process, we're losing touch with life. We're disconnecting not only from our own heart and our purpose, but we're also disconnecting from the world around us. We're just saying we're going to stay put within the safety net of this label, because, like you said, there's no tools there, or at least we don't think we have the tools. I've had many conversations where that's exactly what it comes up to, is somebody put a label on whoever this person was and said, this is what it is. So this is your limiting factor. You develop a limiting belief around that and lose sight of the fact that it's never about the tools. It's about hope. We have that little sense of hope within our heart. And from that, you can look at it just like a knife when you're out on a trail. You can bushcraft and carve anything you need, as long as you got that one thing. And if you're going to start walking a trail to get past and tame that depression, it takes reaching in and taking control of things, stepping into the unknown by embracing that hope.
Yes, part of I also have come from a childhood of immigration, and then a lot of abuse, neglect, and all of those. And I went through, let's say, I would say chronic depression for many, many years, until I did go into like coaching seminars and then therapy. And then I became a therapist and consistently worked on myself going through the path. One of the things that I really got with my own journey and working with people in the past 30 years is, when we as we are born as a whole person and we capture things to become whole and move forward, But in the meantime, a lot of times we become fragmented in, things that happen from the information we get from outside, we get fragmented. And a lot of the times those fragment, like our parts of ourself kind of gets fragmented, and it gets caught into like it just stays in closets, let's say, and although we move forward, we have our power, we have our resilience, we're like surviving life, and we're strategizing, figuring it all out and moving forward. These parts of us don't know about each other, so every time the depression and anxiety comes, it takes us to those places where it's as if I have no idea about my other side growing, moving, learning skills, and growing in a whole different way. So part of awareness integration method that I brought a lot of great theories from outside interventions and put them together. What I got, Mike, is if we don't bring these parts finally to meet and get to know each other, so my vulnerable side knows that another part of me is strong enough and it can rely on it, and my strong part holds my vulnerable sides in a way of carrying it with it and being aware and not get too cocky, that to bring the other side, because and that wholeness that gets created, that's where it minimizes and alleviates the depression and anxiety. I used to work, through psychodynamic for many, many years, doing a lot of deep work, where people will come in and they go through their past, they look at their vulnerable side, and they keep crying and moving. And I thought I was an amazing therapist because they were releasing emotions, but they weren't necessarily changing the belief of the vulnerability or the victimization. They just went back in there, and sometimes as even therapists or coaches, because of our empathy and compassion, we fed even those ideas about, yes, you were victimized. Yes, yes, I'm so sorry. So that part just kept being vulnerable alone, not knowing that another part of themselves has grown them up, has been there for them. So this is where it shifted, bringing the component together of, bringing all of your parts together so that and then you operate out of your strength. You are in nature consistently. If one of your foot gets wounded, you're not going to walk on your wounded, foot all the time. You're going to walk on the other foot and then take care of this wounded foot until, you're whole and you're walking with both. But we don't necessarily do that with our psyche. Although naturally we do it with our physical body, we don't do that necessarily with our psyche. That when we're vulnerable, we just stay in that vulnerability instead of going to our strength and resilience and moving, growing while we bring the other one and heal it and move forward. Does that make sense?
It makes perfect sense, actually. And I'm thinking about one of the main aspects of being a sportsman is conservation. You mentioned the physical part about how we take care of our body so that it can heal. It's because we can see it. The emotional part we don't see. We don't even think about it. Once it happens, we throw it in the backpack and it's gone. Well, with conservation, as a hunter, all those numbers that they have for tags that we come up with is based on the carrying capacity of the land. So when you get too many animals in an area, they begin to struggle to find food. They get diseases and all these different things that it's unhealthy. We try to take care of that and manage that. And the same works for us if you really think deeply about that concept. We have an emotional backpack. We have a carrying capacity. And the more that we collect things and we don't let them go, the worse off we start to feel internally, and the more unhealthy we become emotionally. And one of the places I like to really begin with a group or an individual is not only talking about that, but then reaching down and picking up some grass. Because, as we talk about, Mother Nature is always around us. It's impossible to put your foot on the ground and not feel her, right? If you take that grass in your hand and you start thinking about all that stuff you're carrying, you can emotionally and mentally transfer those feelings to the grass. Then when you put it back down on the ground, Mother Nature's taken it away from you and the energy's gone back where it belongs, freeing you up to grow and, process and collect new things and repeat the cycle over and over again.
Yes. I think that there's also this concept of, you're right that we don't see it, but we do feel it. And so feelings are always in our body, and they're always show up in our body. Thoughts are electrical pulses that are here. Feelings are electromagnetic pulses that are here in every single muscle. It shows up in every single cell. It shows up. So as we become in tuned with our body, like we don't leave it, we are getting tuned with our body, then you get to see it. If there's sadness, I get to see it. I get to feel it. I get to name it. I think what happens is because it's uncomfortable, people leave their body. Like they don't want to touch it. They're just like, no, it's uncomfortable. I don't want to do it. And therefore they close their eyes to it versus not having the ability. So when you, like what you said, when I saw my depression and then I spoke with it, I acknowledged it, right? So it's the same thing when the feeling comes up. If I can, instead of trying to do everything to get it, not notice it, or try to release it without getting the message, it's going to keep coming back. So these are signals that are giving us messages. They're like, knock, knock. This is uncomfortable. Do something about this. Or knock, knock. This is so pleasurable. Keep doing this because we like it. Like this whole system likes this, right? So the feelings were set for us in our mechanism to tell us to move forward with something or get away from something. And if we do get the message that there's a purpose into these feelings, and we get the message, after we get the message, then, like you said, do all of these pieces to let go. Be with the nature, give it to the grass, do breathing, like you were talking to me and saying you were doing deep breathing, do breathing to shift it and release it. There is a message to it, though, that if we capture the message and then do what's appropriate for us to do to that message, then the feeling doesn't keep occurring because it's trying to get you to pay attention. And then if we don't, then it's like, you're going to get hit by a 2x4 with something because you're not attending to your feeling. Whether that feeling accumulates and then gets you ill, or that feeling accumulates and reacts in a way that your reaction and your relationships with the outside world are going to get damaged. So it's so important to be able to see it, to identify it, to hear the message, and then do something for that message and not ignore the message.
And that's where the chaos of today's world makes that very difficult, very challenging to do. And for me, it was originally developing just 5 minutes to sit down and be still with myself. And outside of, that conversation that I had with the therapist about meditation, where I found out I was wrong at the end because I argued for an hour, and I went out back and started shooting my crossbow and realizing, man, I'm meditating. There was actually another part to that. One of the people that I've always looked up to was the Lakota war chief, Crazy Horse. And a fundamental part of him and the way that his processes was when things came up and he had decisions to make, he would retreat and he would go find a spot in the woods and he would sit with himself and, commune internally to put all the emotions of the stimuli aside and look for that root base decision of what needs to be done. And for me, that's been one of the most interesting and amazing muscles to really build over the course of this journey. And now being able to share that with other people, even, just on a daily basis. And at the end of the trail, them seeing, not only did I do that, but now I have fact-based evidence that I can do it because of what I physically did on the trail is a really powerful and really cool reminder that I get to take home at the end of the day.
And it's beautiful. And there are a lot of different types of coming to yourself, right? So some people Like you can have the ability to sit for 5 minutes and then make it 10, 15, and sometimes all the way to an hour. Some people might can't sit, can't be with themselves because the anxiety gets so much, the overthinking gets so much that they're like, okay, I can't handle this. So for those who are listening or viewing us and have that issue, sometimes the guided meditations, because it takes you toward the path. And the minute your brain is going, I'm going to go leave you, they're like, come back. And then they'll take you through the path again and move forward. Sometimes they're pondering questions that we ask ourselves. So sometimes there's a guided conversation that allows us to do that kind of pondering or analysis, or seeing the parts of ourselves that are being unseen. And it's like, it's like a bunch of, how you're you open a puzzle box and you kind of pour everything on the table and everything all at the same time is there. And to know how to create the puzzle where, you put all the pieces, then you do the frame, then you take all the color, and finally you can see the bigger picture. Sometimes if people don't have the skills of how to get all of their thoughts that are attacking them, emotions and thoughts that are coming at them all at the same time, to be able to do this kind of sorting out, sometimes guided meditations can also support us into sorting all of these out. You can see it, then it becomes clear in what is it that you need to be doing for yourself, where these thoughts and emotions are kind of like coming at you and making you overwhelmed.
Yeah, it's very important to understand that, you may be standing somewhere and realize maybe I don't have the tools. I'm questioning whether or not this is for me because the ability doesn't feel like it's with me. There are so many different avenues to get to where you're trying to go that it's okay to remove the judgment that we all tell ourselves and put on ourselves to figure out which path or which tool is going to help you blaze that trail.
Very much. I think you said the main couple $1 million answer, which is the concept of judgment. I think when we talk about self-love or loving, ultimately it's about accepting. And I think, after being a therapist for so long, I get that what I do really in the sessions are having people trying to accept themselves. And that's where I said, these are all these fragmented part of us that comes together. A lot of it is about, how do I accept all parts of me, even the ones I don't like? And then it comes in the relatedness. People go into marriages together and all they do after a while is to look at the parts of the other person who they don't like. And it ends up either living together miserably because all you look at is how I don't like the other person in all these different ways, or leave and then go find yourself in another relationship and find another bunch of stuff that you don't like. Or in our child rearing, right? It's always about where you need to get these things I don't like, these things I'm disciplining you, these things that you have to do. So we're very trained in our brain in order to survive and do the best thing. Our anxiety keeps going and showing us what we don't like, because we're going to keep fixing it. We want to fix it. So we keep looking at things I don't like, versus coming and look, not that's good. You got to do that sometimes, but not for it to be all that who I am. And to be able to accept not only my parts and all of them, and then be able to accept, people as who they are that are around us, relationships as they are, and look at all angles of it. And acceptance, it would be even the beginning of change, or accepting that there are things I can't change, and how can I be with it, even though I can't change it. So when you said no judgment, that acceptance is the healing part. The compassion that we hold for someone, for ourselves and others, even when we don't like something, and bringing that compassion and bringing it into an acceptance, it becomes the beginning of relatedness to ourselves and then to others.
I think, to play devil's advocate to that point, because it's a very powerful thing. However, to not walk that path is a lot easier. It's a lot safer. That's where we're taught to build these distractions, disconnect, and stay away from the challenge. But when you actually take the time to put all that aside and build these practices of meditation and going inward, you come to understand and form this special relationship around the idea that you can't have one side without the other, because that's where you find the balance. And for all of us, we're seeking that balance, which honestly lays along that uncharted path that comes with the unknown.
It does come with the unknown, but the other side of it is also, Mike, we're always in the unknown. We pretend that we know. Because we want to be safe, we put ourselves under the delusion that we know. I remember waking up one day and I'm like, Mike, I have no idea what is in this alarm clock that is alarming. I don't know what's in my phone. I use it all the time. I have no idea what's on there. Then I was like, I'm laying down on this mattress. All I know was that it was a good mattress. It was fit. So I bought it. I have no idea what's in it. And then this thing just took off. Like, what's in the walls? What's in the sheet? What's in the curtain? I went under the water in the shower and I'm like, all I know is water. I have no idea what's in this water, what kind of chemicals they put in it. Then I looked at the shampoo. I turned it around and it's all these names. I have no idea what it is. All I bought, it said organic, it's good for your hair, and I bought it. And I went through a whole day looking at even the things I think I know. Mike, I only know about 1 to 5% of it. The rest of it, I still don't know. And then I got to this point like, wow, I'm consistently living in the unknown, pretending that I know. And the good news is I've survived for 63 years living in the unknown. And then that's okay.
I love the way that you put that, because actually, I just found myself in a whole new world of unknown, being that I was recently diagnosed with diabetes. So, where I'd go through my normal eating habits, all of a sudden I find myself having to look at labels and find out all the stuff that I don't know. And I think the best thing that I could add to that is, as you go through that trail, there's information out there. If you're willing to look, if you're willing to explore and step into, as we've been talking about, integrating yourself into the moment, integrating yourself into a situation, and just opening your heart up to that idea of hope, all the answers and all the things that you're looking for, they're within you, or they're within an arm's reach.
They are, absolutely. And I think the fear and the anxiety that shows up for the unknown obviously supports us to know and get to know and learn the skills and move forward. But there's also this part of not only getting intrigued and then holding the wow moment and excitement about the unknown versus just being afraid of it, and knowing our own resiliency, that somehow, as I said, like with all of this unknown, I was resilient enough to be able to not die and live a functional life within the unknown. So it's almost like trusting ourselves that it's okay. Like when you go on a trail, you might know the known concept of how this path goes because you went there a couple of times. But it's still unknown that at any moment, a particular animal, something would show up. But somehow you trust yourself that I'm going to be okay and I'm going to figure it out. As a human being, based on my past skills, even if something shows up in front of me that I don't know how to handle, I'll figure it out and I'll move forward. That's the piece that I think that if we can rely on ourselves, that as obviously we live and we have experiences, each one of these experiences give us some tools, gives us some knowledge, but that every day something new shows up in front of me that I can trust with the knowledge and the skill that I have, I am capable of figuring it out, or ask for resources who could help me to figure it out. And I think when that also minimizes the level of anxiety and brings us into looking forward in that excitement of the unknown, because another piece is that we become complacent with the known. We get bored with the known. And there's an excitement about putting ourselves in a position where we could put ourselves in new positions. So, and any new position is unknown. So we can get excited. We can live in this wow of life, and even wow of us as human beings. One of the reasons I really wanted to become a therapist, I'm intrigued with humanity and human beings. Like, you never get bored in this job, because every single day human being come up with something new that I would sit down and I'm like, wow, that's amazing. That's amazing how this person was resilient. This is amazing how this person invented such and such, this coping strategy or strategizing to create things. So I think if we get excited about ourselves and get to know ourselves in that way and trust and enjoy ourselves, it'll be really good. And that is a good antidepressant and anti-anxiety.
It's all about that willingness to adapt and just endure in order to go forward. I think about the coyote a lot when I'm out on the trail, because throughout a lot of creation stories, he was the trickster. He was the one that opened up the door for man to come around. And ultimately, we've changed the face of the earth. We've tamed it to make it ours. Now, all the animals in the world fear us. They run away from us, except for one, the dog, who's, related to the coyote. So the coyote figured out, even though I've made this mistake in my life, I can adapt and I can still be one with it. You're not taking the world away from me. I'm going to embrace what's happened.
That's a great way of putting it. I'm going to embrace what is happening and then to make the best of it, and actually becomes the man's best friend and love it. Unconditionally love this other being that is taking over, because I think dogs have the total unconditional love and acceptance that we were talking about before.
I think it's a beautiful way to wind this conversation down. But before I let you go, you got to let people know how to get in touch with you, all what you got coming up, all that good stuff.
Oh, thank you. Yes. Because of a lot of the research we've done, we created an app, which is Foojan app, and you can go through 30 areas of your life through the model of the awareness integration, really create awareness, integration, build skills, and create goals and move forward. In this app, we also saw people even going through with one area of life, they've improved their life about 60 to 70%, because they get like a little short questions at the front and the back, and then they kind of say, how much they've improved. Numbers are astonishing. They're like up to 70% of improvement in their life. We also created Mira within the app, which is a closed AI chatbot, which helps. You can ask a question anytime you like. You can go on the app and ask question, and it's trained from the awareness integration to respond to you. And parenting, relational issues, how to deal with your body for your job, your boss, your coworkers. So it just answers you and gives you skills, gives you pondering questions, shares with you. So you can definitely use the chatbot in Foojan app. It's in Apple Store and Google Play. You can find me at foojanzeine.com. You could find the app at Foojan.com. You can find about awareness integration, therapy, and theory, which we're using it not only in clinical terms, but I teach it in Cal State Long Beach. I teach it in universities in Paris, Romania, Dubai, everywhere. We're teaching it in kindergartens and in school systems. So if any of your audience and listeners are people who like to do research, they want to take this and bring it into their school systems, We have group of amazing therapists, coaches, and educators that can come in and support them and bring this technology into whatever structure. My latest book is coming that we're taking this into companies and corporations and how to shift the culture of corporation and each person really taking care of themselves and management having the ability to take care of them. So all of that is available in any of these venues that people might need, from individual, couples, family, work-related, their children, all of that is available if people needed it.
Beautiful. Thank you very much for taking the time today to have this beautiful conversation. I really appreciate it.
Thank you, Mike. It's been an amazing conversation with you. It's a joy, and thank you for this opportunity.